My name is Tom Halverson, and the night my wife told me she was taking my stepdaughter to spend Christmas with her ex-husband, she slammed the kitchen door so hard the windows rattled. She pointed a red-polished finger at me and said clear as a church bell, "Lily needs her real father. If you don't like it, divorce me." I didn't argue. I wiped sawdust off my hands, opened my old laptop at the kitchen table, and finally accepted the Japan transfer I'd been turning down for years. 1 week later, she came home screaming on my front porch, pounding on the door like she still owned the place. Back then, she really did think she owned everything. It didn't start with the screaming. It started like a regular gray Tuesday in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Went off the river salt. On the roads, folks hunched in their coats, just trying to get through another December workday. I'd put in a full shift at the paper mill, stayed late to quiet a motor that wouldn't stop humming, and swung by Hy-Vee for milk and a rotisserie chicken. When I walked into the house, it smelled like cinnamon and pine. The little artificial tree in the corner was already lit, colored lights blinking in the front window. That was Lily's touch. She was 10 and loved Christmas like it was a full-time job. She came sliding into the hallway in sock feet. "Daddy Tom, did you fix the dollhouse roof?" she asked. I held up the small wooden dollhouse I'd been working on in the basement. Marcy had found it beat up at a yard sale. I'd spent 3 evenings sanding and gluing it back together after work. "Give it a try," I said. Lily leaned on the little pink roof with both hands. It didn't move. "I told Mom you could fix it," she said proudly. "You always fix everything." I wish that had been true. In the kitchen, Marcy stood at the stove with her back to me, stirring a pot of sauce. Her shoulders were tight. I'd learned over the years that you could read her mood just by how high they sat. "Hey," I said, putting the milk in the fridge. "We got the Christmas bonus today. It's not huge, but it'll cover that bike and then some." She didn't look up. "We need to talk," she said. Those 4 words are never about anything good. "Okay," I said carefully. "About what?" She turned off the burner, set the spoon down, and faced me. She had on a nice blouse lipstick, still perfect from work. It struck me that she'd dressed more for someone else than for a night at home. "I talked to Rick," she said. "Rick, her ex-husband? The man who missed birthdays and parent-teacher conferences but always had a story about why." About what I asked, though my stomach had already started to knot. "About Christmas," she said, like it ought to be obvious. "He invited us to the cabin this year. He wants to make up for lost time with Lily. She needs her real father in her life, Tom." "Marcy, we already have plans," I said. "Church service, the dinner at St. Luke's, your parents." She cut me off with a little wave of her hand. "We have habits," she said, "not plans. You and your church hall, potlucks, and folding chairs. Lily deserves a real Christmas with a big cabin and a real tree and her real dad." She hit that word like a hammer. I let that sink in for a second. "I thought I was part of that," I said. "I'm the one here. I'm the one reading to her, taking her to the dentist, showing up at school." Her mouth twisted. "You're the stepfather," she said flatly. "Don't make this about you. You knew what you were signing up for. Rick is her actual father. She needs that bond. Maybe if you weren't so simple about everything, you'd understand." Something small and quiet broke inside my chest. Not a dramatic snap, more like an old board finally giving way. "And where do I fit in?" I asked. She shrugged. "You don't not this time. We're going to the cabin for a week. We leave on the 23rd. If you can't handle that, you can file for divorce. Or I will." She said it like she was reading a line off a script she'd rehearsed all afternoon. From the living room, Lily called Mom. "Are we watching the Christmas movie tonight?" Marcy didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on me, waiting for a reaction. I'd given her plenty over the years, pleading, arguing, explaining myself like a teenager caught breaking curfew. This time I just stood there. I thought about the email from Tokyo sitting flagged in my inbox. Final offer, plant maintenance supervisor, Japan. I'd turned them down 3 times because Marcy didn't want to leave Iowa or her salon or her parents' house 10 minutes away. I thought about my father, who'd worked 35 years at the same factory and used to tell me, "Don't let anybody treat you like you're lucky just to be standing in the room." "I see," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. "When did you tell Lily?" "Yesterday," she said. "She's excited. She wants to see the snow at the cabin. Rick's picking us up." Of course he was. "Okay," I said. "I'll stay out of your way." Marcy blinked. That wasn't the line she was expecting. "That's it," she demanded. You're not going to yell, "Call me selfish," threaten to call a lawyer. I shook my head. No, I said, not tonight. She huffed and turned back to the stove, muttering something about me being spineless. I walked out of the kitchen past the smell of sauce and the stack of unopened mail on the counter and into the living room. Lily had lined up the little wooden family in front of the dollhouse. The dad figure was closest to the door. Movie time, I asked. She grinned. Can we do the black and white one with the angel again? It's a Wonderful Life, I said. Yeah, we can do that. She curled up under my arm with a blanket, her head on my shoulder. On the screen, George Bailey's whole life played out in front of him, all the little sacrifices and quiet moments that nobody else seemed to notice. I watched, but I was thinking about how many times I'd said no to that job overseas, how many nights I'd fixed things in this house thinking we were building something together. Halfway through, Lily fell asleep. I carried her to bed, tucked the quilt up under her chin, and stood there a minute listening to her steady breathing. Downstairs, the house felt different. Empty somehow, even with Marcy in the bedroom and the TV still murmuring. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled my laptop toward me, and opened the email from Tokyo. Hi, Ken, I typed. If the position is still available, I'd like to accept. The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. I read it twice, heard my dad's voice again, and hit send. The little whoosh of the email going out sounded louder than it should have in that small kitchen. I didn't pack that night. I didn't leave a note. I just sat there for a while, listening to the furnace kick on and the ice maker clunk to life, the ordinary noises of a house that suddenly wasn't really mine. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet click of the send button was the first step toward the day Marcy would stand in front of a judge, red-faced and furious, while the truth finally caught up with her. When the plane touched down at Haneda, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: quiet. Not peace exactly, more like the quiet after a storm, when the air still smells like rain, and you're not sure if it's really over. Tokyo was bright even at night, full of lights and motion, but none of it belonged to me. I checked into a modest apartment, my company arranged tiny kitchen, a single narrow bed, and a window looking out onto a street where businessmen hurried past with black umbrellas. The next morning I walked to the plant with my supervisor, a man named Kenji. Tall, soft-spoken, always smiling politely. He bowed slightly when he introduced me to the crew. They bowed back. Respect. Simple, automatic, no strings attached. It felt strange after so many years of walking on eggshells at home. People here work hard, Kenji said as we put on our safety gear. But we also take care of each other. You'll fit in. I nodded, but the truth was, I felt like a ghost drifting through someone else's life. During my first week, I kept checking my phone. There were no messages from Marcy. That part didn't surprise me. She could go weeks pretending I didn't exist if it suited her. But Lily, I kept waiting for something. A question, a picture, anything. So I sent the first message. Hey kiddo, hope you're having fun. I'm in Japan now. Miss you. No reply. I tried again a day later. Sent you a little gift. It'll probably take a week to reach you. Love you. Still nothing. A few nights later, I bought a small charm from a convenience store, a little wooden fox, a symbol of protection. I boxed it up and mailed it to Cedar Falls. It cost more than I expected, but I didn't care. Walking back to my apartment, I passed a family father, mother-daughter laughing as the girl held both their hands and jumped over every crack in the sidewalk. I stopped for a moment watching them disappear around the corner. That's when the guilt hit me, the heavy kind that sits on your chest like someone's pressing a hand against you. Had I abandoned Lily? Had I really been any better than Rick disappearing when things got hard? I tried to shake it off, telling myself I needed time-space clarity. But guilt has a way of creeping in like winter drafts through old windows. Every night I checked my email, and every night it was empty. One Saturday I met a younger coworker named Daiichi for ramen. He noticed me checking my phone again and again. Waiting for someone, he asked. I hesitated. My daughter, or my stepdaughter. He nodded. Complicated. You could say that. He studied me with the same quiet patience I'd seen in the plant. Family matters are never simple, he said gently, but truth always shows itself. I didn't know then how right he would be. The twist came the following Tuesday. I was sitting on my apartment balcony eating vending machine soba when I opened Facebook, something I rarely did. At the top of the feed was a post from a neighbor back in Iowa. A photo. Marcy and Lily standing in front of a large cabin covered in snow. She was wearing a red sweater I recognized because I'd bought it for her last Christmas, and next to them was Rick, her ex-husband, wearing my Christmas sweater, the old green one with the stitched pine tree that Lily loved because she said it looked happy. They all looked happy, a picture-perfect family. Family Christmas at the cabin, the caption read with 2 heart emojis. I stared at that photo until my food went cold. Something stung, not just jealousy, not just betrayal. It was the realization that she had looked me in the eye, told me Lily needed her real father, and then stepped right into the life she always wanted, without me. I zoomed in on the picture, and that's when the second punch hit. Lily wasn't smiling. Not a real one. Not the crinkly eye grin she always gave me. She looked confused, a little lost, like a kid who'd been told to stand still for a picture she didn't want to take. That did something to me. Broke something and fixed something all at once. I closed Facebook and rubbed my face with both hands. I could feel the old guilt turning into something else resolve. But the worst was still coming. 2 days later, I was in the break room when Daichi walked in holding his phone. Tom, he said hesitantly, is your last name Halverson? Yeah, I said slowly. He turned his screen toward me. He'd found a legal notice posted on a public county website, a divorce filing. Filed by Marcy Halverson. Reason abandonment. Date 3 days after I left for Japan. My chest felt hollow. She's saying you left with no intention to return, Daichi said gently, and that the house and all assets should go to her. I blinked at the screen. She knew I was taking the job, I whispered. She watched me send the email. She practically pushed me out the door. Daichi nodded slowly. Sometimes people choose lies when truth is inconvenient. I sank into the chair beside me. She wasn't just happy without me. She was trying to erase me entirely. I opened my email app again. Nothing from Lily, nothing from anyone. My phone buzzed a notification from the tracking app. The charm I mailed to Lily had been delivered 2 days ago. No response. Of course not. Marcy must have intercepted it. I felt anger for the first time, not the hot yelling kind, but the cold, deliberate kind that settles low and deep. I looked out the window at the narrow street below. The snow had started falling soft and silent. Tokyo was busy as ever, but inside me a kind of clarity formed. I wasn't going back to Iowa to fix my marriage. I was going back to save a little girl who deserved the truth, and to make sure her mother finally faced it. I booked my return flight that night. I landed back in Iowa on a cold, windburned morning, the kind where the air bites your cheeks the moment you step out of the airport doors. Waterloo Regional was quiet, just a few families in boots and puffy coats hauling luggage over dirty snow. No one was there to greet me. That was fine. I wasn't ready to be seen anyway. I'd planned ahead and booked a small room at the VFW Post over on Franklin Street. It wasn't fancy, just a bed, a dresser, and a window looking out over the parking lot, but it felt solid, honest, like the kind of place you stay when you've got work to do. I set my bag down and stood there a moment, breathing in the smell of old wood and coffee that had been brewed since sunrise. A veteran with a buzz cut nodded at me in the hallway. Haven't seen you in a while, Tom, he said. Everything all right? Getting there, I said. Just need a few days to sort some things out. He gave me that look older men give each other when they know something's gone wrong, but they're decent enough not to pry. That afternoon, I drove past my old house. The driveway was empty. The Christmas wreath was still on the door, tilted a little to one side. In the front window, the little artificial tree still blinked its colored lights. For a moment, it took everything in me not to pull the truck over, walk up the steps, and knock. Instead, I kept driving. I needed information before I needed confrontation. My first stop was Black Hawk Credit Union. The teller, a woman named Denise, who'd known me for years, blinked when she saw me. Tom, I thought you moved overseas. Not permanently, I said. She lowered her voice. Your wife came in here trying to pull all the money from your joint account. Made a fuss when we told her she couldn't without your signature. Wanted to talk to the manager, then the board. We had to ask her to leave. I figured, I said. Did she say why? Denise sighed. She said you abandoned the family and she needed the funds for emergency expenses. But you know the rules. I nodded. Yeah, I know how it works. She slipped me a printout of the last 3 months of activity, my own transactions on one page, her attempted withdrawals on the other. Thanks, Denise, I said. You take care of yourself, all right? You look tired. I'm working on it. My next stop was Hy-Vee. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to see it, the place where half the town gathered, where rumors grew legs. I pushed a cart slowly down the produce aisle, listening. People in small towns don't whisper as quietly as they think. Heard he ran off with somebody in Japan. Poor Marcy left with the girl and all those bills. Just like her first husband, she sure can pick 'em. I rounded the corner and nearly bumped into the cashier, a woman named Sandy, who'd rung up my groceries 1,000 times. Her eyes widened. Lord Tom, so she was lying. She shook her head. She told us you skipped town with a woman half your age after blowing the bonus on yourself. I let out a slow breath. Not true. I figured. She crossed her arms. You always struck me as steady. She's been in here 3 times this week complaining about everything. I finally stopped asking how she was. I appreciated that more than I said. Thanks, Sandy. She's going to have a fit when she realizes you're back, she said. Be careful. That night I sat on the VFW bed with all the receipts and evidence spread out in front of me. Financial records, screenshots, copies of emails, the printed divorce filing with the word abandonment staring up at me like an accusation. But the thing that hit me hardest wasn't a legal document. It was the drawing. The one Lily had made for me before they left, the picture of us holding hands next to a Christmas tree. I'd kept it in my bag. I set it on the bed and just looked at it. Did she think I left because of her? Did she think I didn't want to be her dad anymore? That thought nearly knocked the wind out of me. I called the school the next morning. The front desk transferred me to the counselor, a woman named Mrs. Callahan. Tom, she said, relieved. I'm so glad to hear from you. You've talked to Lily, I asked. Yes, she's confused. That word again. She asked where you went. I told her sometimes grown-ups have complicated things to work out, but that you love her. She cried. She said her mom told her you chose Japan over her. My grip tightened around the phone. Did she really say that? Yes, I'm sorry, Tom. The nausea and anger mixed in my throat. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. When the call ended, I sat there a long time staring at the floor. That was the moment the doubt evaporated. Whatever guilt I'd felt about leaving was gone. I hadn't failed that Lily Marcy had lied to her. And I wasn't going to let that stand. I spent the next 2 days building my case. My old friend Eric Jensen, who I'd known since high school, was now a lawyer, working out of a little office behind the Casey's gas station. He met me on his lunch break, looked through my binder, and let out a low whistle. She really stepped in it, he said. Trying to sell the house, filing abandonment 3 days after you left, blocking your contact with Lily, the judge won't like any of it. So what do I do? You file a response, he said, and you show up to the hearing. Her attorney will expect you to be out of the country. That's your advantage. Will it be enough to protect Lily? He nodded. If what you told me is true, and it sure looks like it, this will go your way. He closed the binder and slid it back toward me. Just stay calm, Tom. Don't confront her. Let the court handle it. That was the hardest part, staying calm. That night I sat in the VFW parking lot looking at the courthouse across the river. Snow was starting to fall again, big flakes drifting in the streetlights. I thought about the little girl sleeping somewhere across town, probably hugging that stuffed fox I'd won for her at the county fair 2 summers back. I thought about how she'd looked in that cabin photo, not smiling, not really. I made up my mind. I wasn't coming back to reclaim a marriage. I was coming back to reclaim a daughter. 2 mornings later, wearing my best shirt and my old brown Carhartt jacket, I walked up the courthouse steps with the binder under my arm. I reached the top, pulled open the heavy glass door, and stepped inside. The Black Hawk County Courthouse always looked a little intimidating, even on warm days. But that morning, with the sky low and gray and the wind slicing across the river, it felt like walking into a battlefield. My boots echoed on the tiles as I made my way down the long hallway toward courtroom 2B. Eric, my attorney, was already there, sitting on a bench outside with a stack of papers in his lap. When he saw me, he stood and offered a firm handshake. You ready? He asked. As ready as I'll ever be. He nodded, adjusting his tie. Marcy's not here yet. She probably thinks you're still in Japan. That'll work in our favor. We walked into the courtroom. The heat was turned too high and the old radiators hissed in the corners. A few people sat on the benches, the usual mix of locals dealing with traffic, fines, custody disputes, and property disagreements. Small-town courtrooms are never empty. I took my seat at the respondents' table. The judge wasn't in yet. Neither was Marcy. For a moment, I let myself breathe.